The story then began with the MC thinking that maybe other people felt the same way, or perhaps it was just him, that the moms in this game were far cuter than the heroines. A scene was shown where he met one of the heroines' mothers, who happily mentioned that her daughter had told her a lot about him and that she was glad to meet him, after which he practiced sword fighting with her while she praised his skills. At one point, while she was bathing, he accidentally opened the door, which made her scream and question what he was doing there, though she also teasingly called him a naughty boy. Shortly after, that same mom ended up dying, apologizing for being a bad mother, and the MC reacted by hitting his hand in frustration, shouting about how awful it was and questioning why such a kind and lovable mom had to die. Right then, his phone rang with a message from the developers, and he excitedly thought that maybe they had accepted his request to create a route to save her. But upon reading it, he became disappointed as they had ignored him again. He started crying uncontrollably, while the narrator explained that he was just an ordinary corporate employee who was now frustratedly calling the developers idiots and questioning how long they would keep ignoring the moms like this. The game itself was then introduced as Melmagia Fantasy, also known as Magifan, set in an academy within a magical fantasy world filled with appealing scenes, clearly designed as an 18-plus game targeting hardcore gamers, packed with various elements that earned it praise. The heroines each carried different personalities and charms that contributed greatly to the game's popularity, but the one aspect that made it truly stand out was the casting of the moms, which was considered amazing, as the story featured many charming mother-type characters that were more than enough to satisfy the MC's preferences. However, it was also pointed out that in the end, the game still focused only on the heroines, and the moms did not have any independent roots of their own. An even worse thing was explained that most of these moms had extremely tragic fates, where some were killed in brutal ways, some were poisoned, one even died from a dog bite, and others fell into the hands of powerful villains who captured and tortured them for their own desires, while in some cases, a mom sacrificed herself just to save the hero and heroines. Meanwhile, the main protagonist of the game was shown risking his life to save the heroine, but when it came to the mom afterward, he shamelessly ignored her and simply said that nothing could be done and that they should move on, which was something the MC could not tolerate at all as his favorite moms kept suffering like this. Because of this, he had created a group of like-minded people, and together they sent requests to the game developers asking them to give the moms their own independent roots, but the developers ignored them. When he went online, he saw that everyone was only talking about how cute and attractive the heroines were, praising their looks and even their uniforms, which made the MC frustrated as he complained that people were obsessed only with high school girls. And at the same time, he even imagined one of the moms in a uniform before immediately questioning himself about what he was thinking. By morning, he remained frustrated, thinking that everyone ignored the moms, whether it was the developers or even the heroes, and he felt that if he were the main creator, he would have used all his power to save them. However, he was not completely jobless and still had to go out, as he only played games at night, so while standing on the stairs holding his head, he thought about finishing the game and wondered where he should go next. But suddenly he slipped, screamed, and fell down hard, after which the scene abruptly changed. A large mansion was shown where someone was shouting loudly, and then a character opened his eyes, revealing that it was the MC who had now entered that body and arrived inside the very game world he used to play. As he got up, he questioned where he was, recalling that he had just fallen down the stairs, and wondered why the building and surroundings felt so familiar, suspecting something strange was happening. At that moment, the door opened and the number 1 mom of the story entered, asking if he was okay and mentioning that he had been shouting loudly, which shocked him as he recognized her as Rose Mama, a character from Magifan, making him realize that he had truly entered the game world. He felt excited thinking about how unexpected it was to end up inside the very game he had been playing for so long, but then he paused as he remembered that she had just called him by a different name, and in confusion, he looked into a mirror, which also left her surprised. The moment he saw his reflection, He was completely shocked and realized that he had become someone he never wanted to be. He then explained that this body belonged to Dominio Tridal, an arrogant and unpleasant villain-type character in the game whose magic skill was first aid. Yet despite that, he had a terrible personality. Since the original protagonist was just a commoner, this character had always looked down on him and eventually challenged him to a direct fight, leading to a rivalry that ended in his defeat, after which he lost control of his own powers and went berserk until he met a horrifying death. It was also stated that this character's fate was always the same regardless of the route chosen, and right now, the MC had found himself trapped inside this very body. He became extremely nervous and kept thinking that, although he had finally entered the world of Magi-Fan, he had reincarnated into this particular character's body, which meant things could go very wrong for him, leaving him unsure about what to do next. Just then, Rose stepped forward and asked if he was all right, mentioning that he looked very pale and did not seem to be in good condition. And hearing this, he looked at her in surprise, while internally feeling a strange sense of comfort just from seeing her and hearing her voice. It was then explained that Rose Tridal was Dominio's stepmother, a character who did not appear much in the main story but was quite popular among certain users, especially him. She then nervously apologized, saying she should not have entered without knocking, but she had been worried after hearing him scream, though she felt that her concern might have been inappropriate. The MC noticed that she looked scared, and his attention suddenly went to her cheek, where there was a visible injury mark, which she quickly tried to hide while saying that he did not need to worry about it since it was entirely her fault. At that moment, the MC recalled a memory where Dominio had slapped her and spoken to her very rudely, accusing her of being a lowly woman who was only after his father's money, which shocked him as he realized these were Dominio's memories. He also remembered that, according to the game's plot, Dominio had lost his real mother at a young age, and perhaps because of that unresolved grief, he harbored deep hatred toward Rose, even though she genuinely tried her best to be a good mother. It was further recalled that during the final battle between the protagonist and Dominio, when Dominio was on the verge of defeat, Rose had stepped in to protect him, only for him to stab her from behind and insult her for getting in his way, and it was stated that this was always her ending regardless of the route chosen. Realizing all this, the MC felt terrible for her and internally cursed Dominio, then stepped forward, held her hand, and tearfully apologized, saying that if a scar remained on her face, it would be awful, and that he was sorry for everything he had done so far, admitting that he had only wanted to get closer to her. Rose responded shyly that he was just going through a rebellious phase, which was normal for a growing child, but when she heard him call her mom, she was left completely surprised and stared at him in shock. He then realized his mistake and apologized, saying that calling her mom might have made her uncomfortable, but instead, hearing that word made her extremely happy, and she immediately hugged him, expressing her joy that he had finally acknowledged her as his mother. His attention briefly shifted downward in surprise, but soon she stepped back and gently told him to call her mom from now on, reassuring him that she understood and had always believed he was a good boy, adding that they should take things slowly and build their family bond step by step without rushing. After saying that she would meet him again soon, she left the room, and he remained there thinking about how incredibly cute Rose was. He then thought about how terrible it was that such a kind and lovable mom would have to die without even being properly acknowledged, realizing how pure her nature truly was. However, he also understood that the one responsible for killing Rose in the story was none other than Dominio, the very body he was currently in, so he started thinking that if he tried his best, maybe he could prevent her death. And not just that, perhaps he could even save all the moms in the world who never had their own independent roots. With that determination, he decided that he would be the one to save them and immediately began training rigorously, dedicating himself completely to his goal. He practiced swordsmanship and kept explaining that while the game's protagonist would save the heroines, he alone would take responsibility for saving all the moms, which meant he needed immense power. He trained intensely by doing pull-ups, standing underwater for endurance, and studying hard, showing a level of dedication he believed others lacked, all with the aim of avoiding the villain's path and being strong enough to eliminate anyone who stood in his way. Over time, He became so powerful that he could even cut down a tree using his shadow abilities. And while laughing, he stated that he would leave the heroine saving to the original protagonist and instead focus entirely on protecting the moms, highlighting his extreme dedication. The next scene showed a massive wild bear that several soldiers were struggling to fight, as it was far too strong for them to defeat, leaving them terrified, until he arrived and told them to step back. Recognizing him as Lord Dominio, they watched as he used his dancing black spell to punch the bear and send it flying into the air before it crashed down, after which the soldiers began praising him, while he himself was only thinking about finishing quickly so he could return home and hear Rose praise him. It was then mentioned that a full month had passed since he entered this world, and a scene in the palace showed maids talking about how much he had changed, noting that he now treated servants kindly and had even helped with cleaning once, while another worker mentioned hearing that he had recently helped subdue a powerful beast, making it seem like he had become a respectable man. The narrator then explained that the current head of the family was away, so Dominio was handling everything in his place, and he was shown in a meeting with two people, finalizing a deal before handing the contract to Rose and asking her to store it in the treasury. As she agreed and prepared to leave, an old man present there began staring at her in a disrespectful manner and commented suspiciously to Dominio, questioning whether it was wise to trust her with the contract, suggesting that she could run away with all the wealth without him even realizing it, and then went on to make crude remarks implying that she had charmed his father, Lord Gale, with her beauty. Hearing such vulgar remarks about her, it was obvious that she felt hurt, yet she still tried to brush them off with an awkward smile, while the narration explained that Rose came from a once noble family that had now fallen into ruin, leaving her poor, and after marrying into the Gale family as the second wife, she was constantly humiliated and labeled a gold digger. Seeing this, even the people of the household had grown bold enough to target her, especially since Dominio himself used to disrespect her openly. But now things were different because the MC was inside his body. The moment he heard those comments about Rose, he slammed his hand on the table and angrily declared that Rose's mom was a wonderful and respected woman, full of grace and kindness, which shocked the two men as they noticed him calling her mom while glaring at them so intensely. Releasing his shadow, he warned that if they dared to disrespect his mother in front of him, it meant they did not value their lives, and then he restrained them with his shadow, pressing its sharp edge against their necks and ordering them to disappear from his sight immediately. Soon, the mansion echoed with their panicked screams as they ran away, confused about what had happened to Dominio, since he had never acted like this before and had always disrespected his stepmother. Inside, Rose tried to calm him down, reminding him that he was going to become the next head of the family and should not be so emotional, and hearing this, he softened like a child and apologized, saying he lost his temper because they insulted her. She then stepped forward, hugged him, and teasingly called him a bad boy while asking what he hoped to gain by making his mother so happy. Meanwhile, he thought to himself that his relationship with his stepmother was currently very good and wished he could continue like this forever. But he also reminded himself that there were many other moms in this world whom he needed to save, and for that, he had to become even stronger. Before the quest that would push Dominio toward destruction could activate, he needed to gain control over the Gale family, as there was a particular quest that did not greatly affect the main story, but rewarded a rare weapon, which he was determined to obtain in order to save another mom. With that goal, he set out to find the weapon by exploring a hidden dungeon whose path he already remembered, going to the exact location, destroying a statue, and pushing aside a large structure to reveal a secret passage. Although this dungeon usually appeared near the end of the game, he already knew about it because he had played the game many times, and he even knew a special route that would allow him to reach the main gate without encountering monsters, all thanks to his extensive experience with the game. Even if he had to go crazy, he pushed forward and finally reached the last door deep inside, opening it to find a sword suspended in chains, and he explained that it was a demonic weapon capable of amplifying dark magic many times over. He then used his shadow to break the chains, recalling that when he used to play the game, he had a similar weapon that boosted his magic, but since he now possessed dark magic, this one was perfect for him. Just as he was about to claim it, a monster appeared, acting as the guardian of the sword, but the MC already knew everything about it, including all its attack patterns. The creature suddenly launched a tentacle attack that slammed him back into the wall, making him realize with a slight laugh how close it had been, admitting that if his shadow defense had failed even for a second, he would have been finished. At that moment, he understood that just because he knew everything about the game did not mean things would be easy, especially since he could not even see the monster's HP bar, which made things more dangerous. Still, he reminded himself of his promise that he, as Dominio, would protect all the beloved moms in this world, and with that resolve, he charged at the monster. He began analyzing every aspect of it while skillfully dodging its attacks, and also noted that although Dominio was originally a villain with great talent in magic, his arrogance had held him back. But now that he was in his body, he would make proper use of that talent. Once the Guardian finished its tentacle attacks, it switched to using its tongue, launching it forward to strike, and seeing his opportunity, the MC leapt into action, focusing all his magic power into a single point, and releasing it like a beam that pierced through the creature's tongue and struck the eye hidden inside its mouth, causing it to scream before collapsing to the ground. He then explained that the monster's only weakness was that eye inside its mouth, and as he reflected on the attack, he credited the sword for significantly boosting his power output, making the strike far more effective. With a confident attitude, he declared that he now possessed a powerful weapon and had successfully cleared the dungeon, bringing him one step closer to saving the moms he cared about, and excitedly expressed that they should wait for him as he was coming. However, just then, a voice echoed from above as someone laughed and questioned what he meant by moms, mentioning that after such a long time since the seal had been broken, they had been very curious to see who had arrived there.